Hey everybody, Dave Costello here, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow and host of Growing a Firm podcast. Today is a returning guest, Jeff Jacobs. He was on previously talking about client acquisition and client retention and expansion frameworks. He is the director of development at Wilkins Miller, and we had a really great interview. It felt like just a few weeks ago, although time flies in podcast land. And now he's back, and we are going to dissect a little bit about what happens when you're feeling stalled. We actually hit the pause button at the end of the last interview, and then Jeff and I started talking. We started getting into this topic, and we said, "Oh my gosh, we have another episode to record." We teed up the calendars, and really excited to bring him back on. But first, Jeff, let me just say, welcome back to the show.
No, it's great to be here. Had a great time last time. I fully expect that this will be just as much fun. So, no, just pumped to be here and have the conversation.
Fantastic. Well, let's dive right into it. I think coming out of, whatever we call this current world we're in 2023, it's post-COVID, pre-recession, we don't know what's going on. Everything's changing. Bank runs are happening. Nothing's different. Everything's different. I know for a lot of firm owners we talk to is really roller coaster the last couple of years, but we do work with some that just have this feeling of being stalled out, feeling like, maybe they're stalled out personally, maybe they're stalled out from an energy perspective, or maybe they're stalled out at a firm perspective. The firm is no longer growing or generating the profits they want, and they just are feeling, frankly, stuck, right? And it's stuck, and maybe it's even more insidious than being stuck. It's not having the kind of like understanding of what's the first step to take. And so I guess we'll start in that arena for somebody that's feeling stalled out, for feeling stuck, for feeling like they don't have momentum in their day. I guess, how would you start thinking about it, or what questions would you ask to start building back up that energy?
Yeah. So the way I think about this is we're talking about leadership here, right? We're talking about leaders who are leading teams that are potentially, if I understand the question correctly, they themselves are feeling stuck, and maybe even their teams are feeling stuck, like things have not moved in a while. And so,
context. Yeah, if you're a firm owner, it is so hard. If you're a business owner, if the firm's not doing well, you're probably having a hard time doing well. Right? And vice versa. You start doing not super well, you're not enthusiastic, you don't have a vision, you're not inspired, then the firm's starting to suffer. So I think, fortunately and unfortunately, these are really interchangeable, and that trickles down to the staff as well.
Sure. So, it all starts with you. That's kind of how I feel is, everything trickles down from you to the team. Now I understand that I am part of the firm leadership, but not the leader. Right. So I'm just going to speak from my experience. And so, when I feel stuck or when I feel down, I can feel it around me. I can feel people feeling that from me. They're getting that from me. So it's kind of like smoking. I think of it like that. Like, you're around a bunch of people, you light up a cigarette. You're not the only person that's taking in the bad stuff from the cigarette, right? Everybody else is. And so you really have to pay attention to the fact that my actions affect the people around me. And so I really need to do a self-assessment, right? So I take a look at myself and see where I am, what am I falling short on? And the way that I feel most comfortable in doing that, and the thing that helps me get through that stuck position the most, is really going over my goals and understanding where I am trying to go. And so a lot of times that will reinvigorate me. And then the other thing that I want to make sure, specifically for the firm and the people around me, is making sure they understand the goals. They know why we're trying to achieve what we're trying to achieve. And then the other thing that I think is extremely helpful in that same vein is that your people know their expectations. They know what you expect of them. And if they're not meeting those expectations, then of course things are going to stall, and they're not going to feel like they're adding value to the team and all those things, right? So if everybody is working towards a goal, and then everyone understands their expectations, what you expect from them, what you expect of yourself, and you're all working towards that, then I think that's really the first step in making a move to getting out of that stuck place is assessing your goals and assessing the expectations and making sure everything's aligned.
Yeah. And so just to zoom into the self-assessment, is the self-assessment entirely, goals, and is it entirely professional goals, or what are the components of that process?
Oh man, for me, that looks like, honestly, a lot of it looks like, am I accomplishing my morning routine? It kind of all starts there. It starts with, when my alarm clock goes off, am I laying in the bed for an extra 30 minutes, or am I actually getting up out of bed? It's just kind of like that trigger where I can see things are off or I'm on point. And so, no, like if I'm accomplishing my morning routine, I'm waking up. I like to wake up and read my Bible first thing. And then I go into a workout, and then I make sure I have a good breakfast. And so it's not just if all those things are off, then of course I'm going to be off at the office. Right. And then I'm also going to be off interpersonally with the people that I'm trying to build trust with, whether that be clients, prospects, or even internally, just coworkers, people I'm trying to motivate to get out there and do more business development. And so, man, it just kind of all plays into one big, it's just sort of one big cycle, and if just one or two things are off, that can really throw off the whole game.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I was, if you don't have, feels like that momentum outside of your work life, whether, morning routine or your health habits or, things that are important to you, you said these are important to you and you want to prioritize them, missing those eats away at you. Right. And so you have that building in your brain. And then when you encounter an issue at work, you already have some cognitive, we'll call it dirt.
Yeah. Right.
And it just feels even heavier because you're still probably, I'll speak for myself, guilt tripping yourself for not living up to your own expectations. So you're already tired and feeling bad. And then something comes up in work and it's like another thing. And, and so I'm a deep believer in, there's momentum at work, but how you design your day overall should be aligned with momentum and you feeling really, happy with maybe who you're becoming. And not every day's perfect, but the small things at home really impact the big things at work.
Yeah, 100%. And it's for me, it's one thing to be off and have a bad day at work. It's a whole nother thing to be off and have a bad day at home. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
I have 4 kids. These kids depend on me to set the direction of the house, to lead them and teach them and guide them. And, it's like I said, it's one thing to screw up here at the office. It's a whole nother generational impact thing to let seasons of stuckness, that's not even a word, but seasons of being stuck impact my kids and my wife. And I think anybody who owns a firm probably understands that, right? How things at work can impact home life and how home life can impact work. And so momentum and just doing the little things well over a long period of time, like that's really where success comes in, both here and at the home. So,
yeah. And well, you're talking about little things done well compound over time. So I think sometimes it's clear, or it's maybe more obvious for something like health. You either get the walk or you don't. You're hitting the gym or you're not. You're drinking the water or you're not. You're passing on sugars or you're not. I think as it relates to firm momentum, it sometimes feels a little bit more complicated. It's like things are stuck. I'm not sure. Is it pricing? Is it clients? Is it workflow? Is it my services? Is it my area? Is it my client? Is it my marketing? Is it my leadership style? Is it, and you're just jumping or, it's like, oh, why can't it be like, Fitbit, right? I just want to count the steps. So, have you felt a time professionally where both something felt a little bit stalled out and then it, you had to take a step back to diagnose, okay, how am I going to pick this back up?
Absolutely. So if you
work in development, right?
Yeah, I'm in development, specifically in accounting. And I tell people accounting is the place momentum goes to die.
And why is that? Why is that?
It's the seasonality of the business. We are 100% always busy all the time. But then there are seasons where people don't come, it's just like, it's hard for the people on the production line to get their head up. You know what I mean? And everything I do and everything I want the firm to do is all head up work, right? It's all, we got to be, we need to look around. We've got to be building relationships, building trust, all those things. So my part of the business is heads up work. And so there are just seasons where the people that I am working with and working through are head down, right? And so I 100% feel that. And so, getting out of it, it's like you said, it's such a complicated problem, right? And so there's a lot of things that I think you could do to do that. But I mean, really the biggest thing that I think helps us get out of that. I mean, I think of it like baseball, right? It only takes one good hit to get momentum started. That's the beauty of momentum, right? You're really, really stuck, but all you need is one good positive thing to happen. And then the next thing and the next thing. And so one of the things that we try and practice here is recognizing wins. I think when you recognize somebody's hard work, all of a sudden that builds their momentum, and then other people feel that. And then the rest of the firm starts to build that same momentum. And so that's a good first step from a firm perspective is it's positive. It's a positive thing. You're making people feel good about what they're doing and the value that they're adding. So for me, I think it would be just recognize those wins. And that's a great first step to just kind of start the process.
Yeah. And the way I'm even internalizing it too, which is, don't go into analysis paralysis, where I think it's very easy to be completely overwhelmed with the amount of directions you can take something, especially a firm or for strategic growth for a firm. Again, whether it's pricing, whether it's packaging, whether it's team, whether it's services, whether it's ideal clients. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can go. And all of those things are incredibly important. And all those things you need to have a position on. And the position doesn't need to be right, but you at least need to go out and test it and get it to be more right than it was yesterday. But then there's also something to be said of just, okay, I'm feeling stuck. Repackaging and pricing, I just can't pull myself out of the trench I'm in to do that. It feels like it's too much. It's like, okay, well then let's just focus on getting client work done on time. How are we servicing our current client? Okay, and what percentage are we getting done this week, or what percentage have we gotten done today? Or, there's that client, they canceled on me on lunch and then it fell through the cracks. Like, my goal this week is to have that lunch. Just start small, get something very controllable, because the thing with momentum, like you're saying, is you just need to take one hit, one step. It can be small, and you pick up that win. And that's, I think, where the morning routine's important. You pick up that win. Hey, I woke up on time. Great. That's a nice win. It's going to be so much easier to then drink that glass of water. Great. I drink that glass of water. It's going to be so much easier, to go out and take that walk, right? Or whatever it may be. And the same thing professionally. We struggled last week to get our work done on time. This week, we're going to try to, we got, 60%. Let's try to get 70%. That means one more project needs to get done on time or whatever. Mm-hmm. Just small things you have a high shot at winning.
Yes.
Feels like it's a really great way to start building it back.
And that kind of reminds me of a rule that I try to follow as well. It's David Allen, but it's the 2-minute rule. I'm sure you've heard of it, right? If there's a task that you just can't seem to find yourself doing, if it's repackaging and pricing, like you said, do it for 2 minutes. Tell yourself, I'm just going to do this for 2 minutes, and I'm going to do it only for 2 minutes. And then at the end of the 2 minutes, if I think I want to keep going, I'll keep going. And what happens is you spend that 2 minutes, you're like, oh, I'm going. Let's and an hour and a half later, you've worked on the project and gotten some stuff done. So I love that rule.
Yeah, bring things down to very small, actionable items. I actually wasn't familiar with throw a timer on, see if you can run downfield with it. Mm-hmm. If it's not flowing, you could stop and revisit. But if it is, you haven't turned this thing into a mountain, like pricing for sure, right? It's so emotional to reprice or even price increase against clients, but you'll build that energy either by either 2 minutes and rolling it forward, or building up some small wins throughout the day.
Yeah, it's the first step that's the hardest. I mean, a lot of times the tasks that I have on my list that I don't want to do are not difficult tasks. It's just taking that first 4 to 5 minutes of getting started and sitting down and moving forward. I mean, if you can do that, you can get it done. Just creates momentum.
Well, as we wrap up here, I have a question because of the arena you play in. So you deal with development, you're in the world of sales, you're constantly faced with rejection, constantly hearing no's. This is the world of no's, probably, or actually, probably like interested, maybe later. A lot of like,
right.
I'll get back to you. Let me think about it. There's a lot of ways things can stall out, even in your work, where prospect doesn't respond, a client who looked like they were going to come in for something didn't, client cancels. There's all, more than most in your arena, just kind of deal with this every single day. And so have you found anything from a mindset perspective to help you kind of navigate probably the level of rejection or non-answers you might get in your day-to-day work?
Yeah. So I used to make a ton of cold calls in my past life. So rejection was just like my daily. You know what I mean? It was just happened over and over again. My opening line to my cold calls was, "Hey, my name's Jeff. I'm a sales guy. Do you want to hang up on me?" And half the time
it worked. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it did. Half the time it like got a giggle and they were like, "Oh yeah, you got 30 seconds." The other half the time they were like, "Okay." And they hung up. So what I was taught early on in my sales career is to go for no, right? It's so much better to get a no early than have someone tell you yes, 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 yes. And then ultimately it just turns into a no, right? Yeah. So you need, as a salesperson, your job is to figure out all the reasons why you shouldn't work together, right? And then once you have sort of squashed all those reasons and the prospect can't come up with another reason that you shouldn't work together, then it's only logical that you get to the end of the conversation and it's a yes. So no is what I was after. I wanted people to tell me no, because then I just got to move on, right? I don't want someone to say, "Yeah, go ahead, you can have 30 seconds. Well, we've thought about that, but we don't have money or time, but I'll take a meeting." It's just like those little meetings and that all that time that string you along, all those yeses that don't mean anything, right? That's not what you want. You want to know, you want it quick, and you want to move on to the next one. And so hearing no for me was goal accomplished. Let's keep going. So that is the one mindset trick that I had over and over again as I made cold calls. And even now, it's okay because not every client is a good fit, And so in order to do this job well and to do business development well, you have to be comfortable with no. And my opinion is that it should be your goal. No should be what you're driving for.
Yeah, I love that. It's so interesting, and as teeing up the question, it was like, whoa, how do you deal with the emotionality of being rejected all the time? And you kind of flipped it on its head from a sales perspective, which is like, it's not really, obviously there's a lot of emotions, but it's not an emotional thing. It's more of a discovery if you're mutually a good fit. And I wonder, there's probably ways to rinse, repeat that mindset adjustment, because then all of a sudden no's are not intimidating. And there's probably other avenues and other parts of the business where it's less intimidating if you just switch your mindset to either trying to get to know or thinking of things as a discovery, right? This could even be obviously with candidates you're hiring. The talent market is so challenging at this time. And I think firm owners might be throwing, they're almost trying to sell the firm, but maybe you should be thinking about as, how do we make sure we're mutually a good fit? And that doesn't, mean you're in constant sales mode, and it doesn't mean you're standoffish, but you're trying to discover mutually if it's a good fit.
So the other day, I have the opportunity to coach one of my sons in baseball. And I noticed at his game that they were striking out, getting out, grounding out, whatever. And they were walking back to the dugout. Just some of them were actually in tears, just super, super disappointed. And so we got to the next practice and I had a big old bag of sunflower seeds, right? And I took that bag of sunflower seeds and I dumped every one of those sunflower seeds onto the lid of a bucket. And I said, "Look at this. Do you see all these seeds?" I said, "Yeah." And so I pulled one seed out and I said, "You see this? This is one seed. Okay. This represents one at bat. Do you know what the rest of these seeds represent? The number of at bats you have left in your career. And I threw the seed out. I said, what's more important, that one seed or these thousands of other seeds that sit right here? Obviously they were like, well, all these other seeds, this what's important. And so anyways, it's, baseball players, the best of them have, 10 to 15,000 at bats over their career. Right. And the best players get out 2 out of 3 times. Right. And so the whole point is like, it's just one at bat. You get up there, you swing, you do your best, you learn for the next at bat. And you can't major on the losses. You learn from them, but pay attention to the wins, keep moving, and don't worry about that one seed.
Yeah, I love it. It reminds me of an old Jim Rohn quote: "Don't major in the minor
Exactly.
thing." Right. Jeff, this has been fun having you back on. If somebody wants to reach out, say thank you, learn more, chat a little bit about what you're up to, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
So you can look us up, wilkinsmiller.com. You can find me on there. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Jeff Jacobs, and I'd be happy to dialogue. I do have the opportunity to work with accountants across the country. And so if you run into a spot where you feel like you need some coaching or that kind of thing, that's also something that I do. And I really, really enjoy. And so anyways, happy to start the discussion.
All right, wonderful. And for folks who couldn't jot down everything we were talking about, we're going to link everything up and do a full summary, jetpackworkflow.com/blog. That's jetpackworkflow.com/blog. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a review, helps us get the word out. If you really enjoyed this episode, if something was a light bulb moment for you, share it with a fellow firm owner or firm leader that needed to hear something today. I know that's the best way to say thank you to Jeff and myself. Jeff, thanks for coming back on.
No, it was a blast. Thank you, David.